How's it going, everybody? It's Bon here, and I'm finally back. After a month's hiatus from the channel, doing all sorts of stuff with life and all that jazz, I'm finally back. And today, I bring you my thoughts and opinions on Black Ops 6 Zombies. Now, the game actually released back on October 25th, so we've had this game on our hands for about a month now, and I think during the first weekend, people were already completing the Terminus and Liberty Falls Easter eggs, so I just went ahead and followed suit and did those as well. So I thought it'd be a perfect time to just compile all my thoughts together and create my review on Black Ops 6 Zombies. So, over the course of the last week, while I was playing, I jotted down a couple of notes on things that I liked and things that I disliked about the new Black Ops Zombies experience. So let's just jump right into some of the likes. First off is the gameplay. The gunplay in Black Ops 6 feels fantastic, as it should be. With Call of Duty releasing games every year since 2003, I would expect them to have this down pat by now, and of course they do. All the guns in the game feel like they have impact, they feel like they have power, and whenever you're doing a weapon inspect, running around with them, so on and so forth, it definitely gives off the idea that your character is actually carrying a real weapon. But I think the only reason why the gunplay is so apparent to me as I play through it now is just because I've been playing a lot of Black Ops 3, and a majority of the weapons in that game feel like you're shooting a plastic toy, and they just don't have any impact, or they don't feel like they have any power to them. Especially the SMGs, they just feel hollow, like hollow plastic toys. So playing Black Ops 6 now, there's definitely a night and day difference when it comes to the gunplay. And it's just something that I took notice of and can appreciate all the small details that they put into the weapons, into the animations, and it's just something that I liked and noticed while playing. We do see a lot of returning mechanics from Cold War in Black Ops 6 with some slight changes that actually make it feel a lot better. Salvage is definitely one of those changes. Back in Cold War, you used to have two different rarities of salvage. You would have the green rarity salvage, and then the far superior rare salvage that would drop later on from higher level enemies or from special enemies. This dual resource system, I felt, hindered the experience of Cold War because a vast majority of the time you would get the green rarity salvage to drop. However, to progress anything further than blue rarity on your weapons and armor level 2, you would have to get the rare salvage. So effectively, you would have to restart your grind and hope that the zombies drop rare salvage instead, just to progress anything further than blue rarity. Thankfully, in Black Ops 6, they fixed this issue. Salvage is salvage. No matter where you pick it up, it is just one resource. So you can use this one resource to upgrade your weapons to max, your armor to max, or to craft any score streaks that you'll need later on in the matches. I felt this was a well-needed change. It simplifies things a little bit, that way you don't have to worry about inventory management and you can just have fun playing the game. Pack-a-Punch tiers have also made their return from Cold War and previous zombie installments. It's the same as we've seen before. Your initial Pack-a-Punch of 5,000 points gets you the first tier, your second tier is at 15,000, and then your third tier is at 30,000. There's nothing much changing there. However, they did add something back that I've been wishing for a very long time. So for anyone who's been paying attention to like the zombies meta and everything, you might see everyone going around rocking the dual-wheel GS45s. There is a reason for this. When you pack-a-punch the GS45s, they effectively turn into the Mustang and Sally. However, I think they're just called Sally. I don't know why. They could have said it. They could have made it Mustang and Sally, but they didn't. I don't know why. Anyway, specialty pack-a-punches are back, and the GS45s aren't the only weapons that this applies to. I'm not going to reveal those other weapons in this video, just because I feel part of the gimmick of these really cool pack-a-punch weapons is finding them yourselves and figuring out what they do. Of course, you can probably just look up online at all the other ones that have specialty pack-a-punches, but what's the fun in that? Omni movement, which I thought at first wouldn't have that much of an impact in the zombies mode, actually does. Now, obviously you don't have to do any of the crazy stuff that Omni movement allows you to do, like diving while shooting or any of that nonsense, but it does give you the ability to run in any direction that kind of bleeds into normal gameplay very well. I didn't even realize I was using the Omni movement features until I talked to my friend about the game. And I started to realize that, yeah, it feels fluid, it feels like it probably should have been a part of the game to begin with. I remember in old Zombies games to where if you wanted to turn around and shoot at a zombie, they would catch up on you pretty quickly, especially if they were super spinners, so you could only turn around and shoot for a certain amount of time. Now, of course, in Black Ops 6, if you turn around and shoot, it still slows you down. However, you could still just turn around and take a look at your horde and not lose too much speed. It's a very nice added feature that at first you don't really realize, but I slowly began to appreciate it the more games I've played. I wasn't quite sure what to call this next portion because it kind of encapsulates a lot of different things, so I guess we're just moving on to the visuals / art direction of Black Ops 6, which I like. When it comes to visuals and art direction, the first thing that pops to mind about Black Ops 6 Zombies is, well, the zombies themselves. They look absolutely fantastic in this game, and they have different themes depending on what map you're playing on. This is something that we've seen in the past, but it's always nice to see it reoccurring in these games. Liberty Falls has the zombies dressed more casually, because you're literally fighting civilians who've turned into zombies. They have brighter colors on, they have hats, they have skirts, so on and so forth, and if you open up the bowling alley, you can see people with bowling shirts, all that cool stuff. And of course, it's a military-controlled area, so you'll have some armed guards, people outfitted with armor, which makes sense in that area. Liberty Falls also has its own special boss monster in the form of the Abomination. We've seen him before back in Cold War, and he's also still a pain in the butt to deal with. Terminus also has its own theme. It takes place on a prison / dark ether laboratory of man-made horrors to where they use the dark ether to mutate human bodies into these weird things called amalgams, which upon close inspection will rip your face off. The zombies of this map also follow along this same theme, having security guards and sometimes zombies with hazmat suits on, and also exclusively this zombie design that I've only seen pop up on Terminus. I have not seen this come up on Liberty Falls. I have no idea if it really does, but he just seems to be a specific zombie design only for Terminus. No idea why, but I think it's kind of cool. I do really like the new enemy types called the Vermin that was introduced to both maps. These little guys seem to erupt out of the skulls of the zombies and sprout legs that seemingly mutate out of nowhere. The first time I seen this, I kind of freaked out a little bit because I thought it was the coolest thing. In Terminus, these little guys are treated like some sort of a two-stage evolution Pokemon in the fact that we get both the arachnid versions of them, and they also have a chance to mutate into the flying variants called parasites. We've seen the parasites before back in Black Ops 3, and they pretty much work the same way. They fly around, they bug the crap out of you, and they shoot acid at you. Both the vermin and the parasites fit very well into the theme of Black Ops 6, that being the human mutation / human experiment type gist that we have so far, but there's also this really cool setting. If you go to your settings tab and you type in arachnophobia, you can find a cool little mode that deletes their legs. So then they just look like little turds walking around with mouths, and that is just the best thing I've seen all day.
Chocolates! What? Chocolate! I can't hear you! They're selling chocolates! They're selling chocolate? Yeah! Chocolate.
At the time of making this review, there are really only two maps we can compare and contrast for Black Ops 6 Zombies. However, I am absolutely loving the art direction and the themes presented in both. I feel like they have their own characteristics to kind of stand them apart from one another. Liberty Falls was a particular case for concern before Black Ops 6 actually officially released. A lot of people online were saying all sorts of different things. They claimed that it was too bright, it wasn't zombie-like enough, and it just felt war-zoned, which is actually a different topic in this video. Anyway, I've had my fair share of concerns about this game, and about Liberty Falls in particular as well. Despite all that, I'm glad to say that it didn't really make a difference to me once I actually got my hands on the game. Yeah, sure, they did make some slight changes by putting like some sort of film gradient over the map to make it a little bit more darker and moody, but for the most part, having the setting take place in a town during the middle of the day didn't really change my outlook on the zombies, and I actually enjoy playing Liberty Falls more than Terminus in some cases if I just want to have a casual game of zombies or just grind out some camos. And the setting of Liberty Falls actually makes sense if you think about it. I mean, they're only a couple days into a dimensional zombies outbreak. everyone's running around trying to figure out what the heck to do. Blanchard is trying to regroup his forces in order to find missing people. Heck, there's people that are dead in the town that he doesn't even know about yet. And now all of a sudden he has to hire 4 random people who showed up in order to look for the director. This apocalyptic event has only just started, and Liberty Falls is still in the midst of the chaos. There, of course, are damages to buildings, but nothing is fully collapsed down, and the level of destruction is nowhere near what we've seen in previous zombie titles, especially Black Ops 2 after the nukes hit the Earth. Now, only time will tell if we ever get to see settings that are on the brink of world destruction like Black Ops 2, or some sort of interdimensional break in space-time like in Black Ops 3 with Revelations. But I do really feel that Liberty Falls and Terminus are setting the stage for something much crazier later on. I mean, when you think about it, the premise of Cold War was in order to stop this outbreak. But the only thing that we get from our side here, from Terminus, is a revenge plot. Like, they don't care what happens to the outside world, just as long as Weaver gets to kill Richtofen. That's like the only drive that this team has right now, is to strike back at Richtofen and what he's done. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of carnage in this storyline specifically. Let's move on to the meat and potatoes of the Zombies game mode in general. That would be the Easter eggs, and Black Ops 6 has a crap ton of them. Like I stated before, I have completed both the Liberty Falls and the Terminus Easter eggs, but I did do them solo, so I did not get to experience the full 4-player experience. However, I'm looking to change that here soon. Maybe it might change my opinion on the game, probably not. But while I was doing them solo, I thoroughly enjoyed them. I felt like they were a perfect balance between the intricacies and complexities of the times long ago and Cold War's modernistic guided type Easter eggs. So there are some points in the Terminus Easter egg that may get a little hairy if you're not prepared and or still new to the game, but for the most part the Easter eggs are a very chill experience and doesn't really take that long to complete on both maps. I think the fastest time I've seen for Liberty Falls so far has been like 18 minutes, and Terminus is about twice that, so maybe about half an hour for the average player. It won't take you that long to complete these Easter eggs. They're not needlessly drawn out and overcomplicated. I mean, there's even a portion of the Terminus Easter egg to where you can straight up pay Peck to just give you the answer to one of the codes. The boss fights for both of these maps are pretty good as well. Liberty Falls was more of like a survival type thing with heavier mini-boss enemies coming in towards the end, but Terminus has an actual dedicated boss fight. I loved every second of this boss fight. I thought it was really cool on how they went about this, and it makes me excited to see like what other things they have planned for us in the future. Like if they were given the time and they were given the resources to do this, then what could they do for future maps? I can't wait to see. Black Ops 6 is absolutely littered with other small Easter eggs on every map. It is absolutely fantastic. You can literally shoot a pool ball and get some free points. You can shoot a basketball and make it into the hoop on the other side and get a whole bunch of points. You can play bowling. You can literally play bowling for rewards. It has a chance of giving you a ray gun, free perks, all sorts of stuff. It is absolutely fantastic.
Nice car. Perfect.
There are so many ways to just get free weapons from doing these small Easter eggs. I got a ray gun here in this clip by just shooting a car with a Mangler cannon. That is just absolutely wild to me. I absolutely love these types of Easter eggs, ones where you can just get free stuff for doing the stupidest of things. Some of these Easter eggs are even used in speedrun strategies, like the one at the start of Liberty Falls. If you shoot the top of this water tower, you can get a free double points, which sets you up really nice in the early game. It seems like a lot of care has been placed on these little Easter eggs that nobody would really think all too much about. And I absolutely love these. It kind of seems like almost every single person on the development team has either implemented or been a part of implementing one of these Easter eggs, and it just makes the whole game feel like it's loved and appreciated. And it's kind of like a callback to their origins in a way, considering that COD Zombies was at its core an unapproved side mode that a couple people from the development team decided to make when they were bored. They didn't have to do it, but because they did, it just makes the game better as a whole, in my opinion. So, with that all being said, Black Ops 6 Zombies is a pretty good game. It definitely does have some flaws, which is what we're going to be getting into next with my list of dislikes. A lot of the gripes that I have about this game is probably because I'm just a classic Zombies enjoyer. The first 5 seconds of me opening this game, I changed my HUD setup, that way it looks similar to the old games, with the zombie round counter down in the left-hand corner, the perks kind of stacked up next to that, just to kind of feel at home, I guess you can say. But I tried to lower my list down to just the big problems that Black Ops 6 has, but I wanted to keep one of my gripes on this list, and that was the box music. Why? Why in the flying fuck can they make this game packed full of Easter eggs, make it feel like a zombies game again, and then not add one of the most iconic tunes to ever hit the face of this earth? Like, why would somebody prefer this over this? Blows my mind. Why have we not seen the return of this jingle? And why are we stuck with this bullshit? Makes no sense to me. Now, moving on to some of the actual problems in the game. One of them is definitely the warzonification of zombies. Now, of course, we've seen this happen in the past with Cold War when they tried to experiment with several different types of zombie modes. One of those modes was Outbreak, which was just effectively Warzone for zombies. Outbreak had introduced vehicles into the zombies formula and was definitely necessary for these larger maps. Instead of spending 10 minutes traveling from point A to B on foot, you can just hop into a car, motorcycle, ATV, whatever's available to be able to get to your objectives faster or to complete more objectives on the map before moving on to the next one. Black Ops 6 definitely takes some inspiration from this, however it scales it down. In Terminus, you are able to spawn in boats to be able to traverse the other islands that are scattered around the map. Now, of course, Terminus is probably one of the larger round-based zombies maps we've seen thus far, and swimming from point A to point B is probably going to take you a little bit more than 10 minutes, and it'll be tedious as hell, so I see why they wanted to add in boats into here. But my first thought whenever I saw you're able to spawn in a boat, it kind of took me out of the round-based zombies experience and reminded me that I'm playing a Warzone-ified game. It seems that the boats in Terminus are literally the only way that you can get from one island to another, and there's really nothing that really happens in between. Yeah, sure, there are some steps in the Easter eggs where you have to ride out to one of the buoys, or to 3 of the buoys to hack them and such, but for the most part, when you're out on the water on the boat, nothing really happens to you. Occasionally, Patient 13, or the final boss, is going to lift up one of its tentacles and spray a whole bunch of acid down on top of you, which will destroy your boat pretty quickly, but for the most part, if you're just driving around out there, there are no zombies, you are left completely alone, and then occasionally you'll see a couple parasites or something fly by and try to annoy you, but for the most part, you can just Bing chill out there for as long as you freaking want, and nothing will happen to you. So, it just takes it out of the zombies experience for me. Now, I can forgive the boat section of this. Vehicles and everything, if used well, I can definitely see them being implemented into zombies in a very positive way. Terminus, I think, takes a good step in the right direction. However, it still kind of peeves me a little bit, but I can get over it just because Terminus in of itself is a very fun map to me. But this next point I cannot forgive, and that is the armor system. Much like Cold War, the armor system has returned, however, it's come back worse than it was before. So, back in Cold War, when you had armor, all you had to do was just level it up to level 3, and then occasionally zombies would drop plates, you walk over the plates, and boom, it'll refill your armor, you're done. Nothing else to do there. But in Black Ops 6, for some reason they thought it'd be a really good idea to have the player manually plate themselves. Every single time, they take damage. I have not played very much Warzone whatsoever. I can see how plating yourself has just become like a muscle memory for a lot of players out there who play Call of Duty. I am not one of those players. I find this to be the most annoying and distracting thing I can possibly think of in the game. I feel like every single time I have to replate in this game, I have to disengage from killing the zombies, from playing the actual game, just so that I can have a chance at surviving later on in the rounds. Like, it's without a doubt, armor is absolutely a necessity if you're going to go for higher rounds, and it's definitely wanted if you're wanting to take on some boss fights. So I don't understand why we have to manually plate ourselves. We have to go and hide around the corner. We have to disengage from our train of zombies to get far enough away to replate before we get back into the action. Now, I can see that when you do plate up, you can still fire your right-handed weapon, but I have noticed that while doing that, there are delays with the trigger, and sometimes I'm not even allowed to fire with my gun at all, so I'm just standing there not doing shite and getting slapped to death again. Even though I just replated my plate, I get hit 2 or 3 times and that plate is gone, so I just wasted that couple of seconds that I could have been using. It just seems like it's not necessarily needed in the zombies mode, and it's just kind of in there because it's a core component of Black Ops 6, it's a core component of Warzone, and it was in previous titles. I could definitely do without the manual plating, but I can see some positives to it, I suppose. You can store up your armor as well, that way if you didn't want to use it right then and there, you can use it later on. I understand that, but I don't know, I need to get used to it, but at the same time, I don't see why it's in here. It just seems to be a little bit more complicated than what it really needs to be. My next dislike when I was playing this game actually stems from the minimal amount of high rounds that I've been trying to attempt and some things that I've been seeing online. The high rounds in Black Ops 6 seem kinda iffy to me, and I'll explain that here in a second. Here in my recent gameplay, I've only been able to reach about the mid-40s, and I've noticed a couple of things in the high rounds that kind of concern me a bit. One of those things is the constant spamming of special enemies, especially the Manglers. The Manglers make their return in both Liberty Falls and Terminus, but it just seems like, as I stated before, the Manglers are more like a difficulty slider for the game. Once you start getting into rounds 30 plus, you'll be seeing a lot more of these enemies spawn in, and there was one time where I literally had to deal with 8 of those guys. It's absolutely redonkulous, dude. The amount of projectiles being shot at you in the higher rounds makes the game kind of feel like some sort of a roguelike bullet hell, and it only gets worse the further you progress throughout the rounds. And the only reliable strategy that I've seen so far to progress further than round 100 in this game is to use and abuse the mutant injection score streak, which just turns you into a mangler, makes you invulnerable for a certain amount of time, and basically gives you scaling damage. Which then just turns high rounds into a battle of salvage, to where you're constantly fighting for more salvage, recrafting your mutant injections, and then standing in a corner or the best possible spot, that way you can hit all the zombies that are coming through, not even using any of the weapons or gear that you've been leveling up from rounds 1 to 40. It just doesn't seem right to me that we're playing Call of Duty Zombies, yet we're doing everything but using the weapons that they're pushing us to use and upgrade. Doesn't make any sense to me. And granted, yeah, high round strategies, normally the zombies outscale a majority of the weapons that we even use, unless it's something broken like the Apothecon Servant, but there are still trap strategies running around the map using those that are interesting, intriguing, and actually require a bit of skill. But standing in a corner as a mangler, pressing the melee button over and over and over again, doesn't really scream skillful to me. It just seems like a really cheese tactic just to get to high rounds, but it's not like they're really giving us much of a choice, especially with that whole difficulty spike I spoke of, so do what you must, I suppose. But I would really like to see this game actually open the doors up for more high round gameplay by not having to cheese things just because of some broken score streak. Now, for the biggest problem of Black Ops 6 Zombies, in my personal opinion, is that the game is constantly online. It cannot function without being connected to the servers, and that worries me quite a bit. Call of Duty Zombies has always been something that I could fall back on, regardless of how much time has passed. I can pull out World at War and play all the classic maps again if I wanted to. I can pull out Black Ops 3 and play any custom Zombies maps that I want that I've downloaded, and I can even pull out Cold War and play through D Machina, Firebase, Forsaken, so on and so forth. They're all still there and they're all still available. However, with Black Ops 6, unless some sort of genius out there is going to be able to make this game run with some sort of patch without being connected to the online servers, I don't ever see this game ever being revisited after its life cycle ends. We could only play Black Ops 6 Zombies until Treyarch or Activision basically say that they're done with it. And that's something that I don't like. I paid $70 for this game. I'm gonna play this game whenever the fuck I want. But that just seems to be more of an issue with how live service games are treated nowadays rather than Black Ops 6 in general. We no longer actually own the games that we buy, we just pay for the services to keep the lights on in their offices and to keep the game going, and it's really up to the developers on how long they want this game to survive. And it seems the only reason why Zombies is included in this online-only feature is 1, because the entirety of Black Ops 6 requires certain files to even run properly, and 2, the save and quit feature, which I'll admit is pretty freaking cool, but it's at the cost of the longevity of the game in of itself, and I don't think that's a fair trade. That's pretty much all I have to say about Black Ops 6 Zombies. I'm thoroughly enjoying this game as of right now, going through, doing my camo grinds, completing the Easter eggs, looking for other small Easter eggs around the map to kind of make videos on. I'm having a blast in this. I haven't been this excited about Zombies in quite a long time. The only thing that would come close is to some community maps coming out for Black Ops 3, which are still pretty hype, but actually getting new official Zombies content and seeing that Treyarch is putting and pouring a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into creating these new maps, creating these Easter eggs, I am looking forward to what they do next, and I am literally shaking in anticipation. I hope it's going to be a really fun ride, and so far, it really does seem like it. Thank you guys so much for getting this far into the video. I apologize for taking 30 minutes of your time just to do this review, but this is one of my first reviews that I've taken on ever, so it's definitely not the most polished and definitely not the most organized that I could possibly have made it, but I wanted to get this out there as soon as I could. Black Ops 6 being a live service game, it's not going to stay this way. It's going to be constantly changing. There's going to be constant hotfixes and updates, patches, all sorts of cool stuff, so who knows what the future has in store for us. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about Black Ops 6 in the comments. I'm genuinely interested to see what the rest of the community thinks, and I'll catch you guys in the next video, whenever that's gonna be.
I'll tell you the same thing I told my ex during my last UTI. It'd be real nice if you could save spoon for another day.
Ooh, nice. Also, stop talking about your UTI. That's gross, man.